Sometimes it's a mental thing of like, I feel like I need to eat food because I'm so used to eating food all the time. Or just that I'm thinking about food, I want food. Welcome back to the Fasting, Food, and Faith podcast. I'm Brianne Sims, RN.
I'm Dr. Sam Sims, nurse anesthesiologist.
And we are continuing our series on overcoming common fasting struggles. And this week we're talking about the mental mindset part of fasting because that is the biggest struggle for most people.
Yeah, I have a John Madden mishmash quote the way I remember hearing it, that when he tried to quote Yogi Berra, which I thought was hilarious online, but I know this is exactly correct, but this is how I'm going to remember it. So I guess this would be my quote now.
Yeah.
Because I make it different, But I'm going to attribute it to John Madden because that's where I first heard it. Because he was attributed to football, and so I'm going to attribute to fasting.
Yeah.
Yeah. 50% of fasting is 90% mental.
Which is 100% true.
Yeah. Hey!
Yes. If you have ever fasted, you know that is 90% mental. Okay? So let's talk about the first stumbling block. Okay? And this was hard for us when we first started fasting, is just wrapping your brain around the idea that it's okay not to eat. Especially when we've been raised our whole lives to be like, you need to constantly eat, eat that Snickers bar, eat that,
Never be
always
hungry for
have
a second.
snacks, never be hungry for 1 second. You have
6
to
meals a day.
You have to keep your metabolism going, which is just all lies.
Your ancestors didn't eat that way.
Because fasting improves your metabolism, not continually eating.
Yep.
Basically, it's wrapping your brain around the idea that God designed your body for fasting. He designed you for fasting and feasting. Like, who wants to not eat?
Yeah, and your genetics are people who didn't eat every meal.
Yes.
So your genetics that you have handed down to you are people who did not eat every meal and did not even know sometimes when they were going to get their next meal. And that was just even 100 years ago.
Yes.
And then you get the whole of it with the hunger is like, well, I get hangry, so I can't fast. And I used to get hangry too. So I mean, it's a great excuse that everybody likes to use, but it doesn't really work when you actually in practicality. But I hear it all the time, and I used to have it too. But ironically, fasting helps cure the hangry feeling.
Yep, it does.
Huh.
Imagine that.
So maybe if you get hangry, you need to fast.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. You really do. And here's the other thing too, is that fasting is not only a physical discipline, it's also a mental and spiritual discipline. It involves all 3 parts of your body. And I think God planned it that way on purpose. But here's the thing. Anything that he calls you to do, aka fasting, he expects that of us as his children. He is faithful in it, and there is a reward in it. So when we fast, it's healing our body, it's healing our spirit, it's healing our mind. And research has proven that over and over and over again, and we've shared a lot of that in the past. But so
it helps with mind healing, helps the depression.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Body healing, you get autophagy, and you get rid of all these bad cells and that kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. And then spiritually fasting is leaving some of the world behind to be closer to God. You're saying, I want God, more of God in my life than I want food. And so he rewards that desire of our hearts, that desire in our spirit to be closer to him. And so there is a reward mentally, physically, and spiritually with fasting. So it's okay not to eat.
But you will get hungry when you're fasting.
Yeah.
And so how do you...
There is that feeling of hunger.
It's ghrelin. It's a hunger hormone. It makes you feel hungry. And it usually makes you feel hungry about an hour before you eat. So I call it the gremlin, makes you feel hungry. So that hormone goes in phases. And so if you're not able to eat, you'll find that even a couple hours after you weren't able to eat when you were hungry because you got busy or a crisis happened, you're not hungry. So is it a hormone or is it hungry? And for the most of the time, it's a hormone. The gremlin is what I like to call it, is the ghrelin. The gremlin attacks, and you can drown it.
Yeah.
Right? You can drink some fluid, and you can drown it.
Yeah.
Or you can have a fasting fuel, and you can get rid of it. So you can defeat the gremlin.
Yes. But if you're drinking lots of water and you try and fasting fuels and you're still feeling hungry, and sometimes it's not a physical stomach feeling of hunger, sometimes it's a mental thing of I feel like I need to eat food because I'm so used to eating eating food all the time, or just that I'm thinking about food, I want food. So, strategies for dealing with that are number one, pray, because you're fasting for a reason. And so, talk to God about it. Talk to Him about the reason that you're fasting. Whether you're praying for something specific, you're wanting healing in your body, you need weight loss, you need whatever it is, ask God about it. Petition Him during your fast and ask Him to strengthen you and to help you with those thoughts and emotions that are trying to derail you from your fast, because He is faithful.
So you mentioned food thoughts.
Yes.
You mentioned food thoughts because you're eating hungry because you're thinking about food.
Right. So distracting yourself from those food thoughts, because they can make you hungry just thinking about food while you're fasting, or seeing videos about food, or smelling food. And so the number one thing obviously is to avoid those things while you're fasting as much as you can. It's not always possible. The other thing is to stay busy.
Yep, and and if you're
Yeah.
if you're thinking about food
Yeah.
and being hungry, then try to think about something else.
Yes.
And if the only reason you're hungry is because you're thinking about it, then again, that's a hormone response.
Right.
Or if you watch something, especially cooking shows, I can't watch cooking shows early in my fasts, I can't.
Yeah.
If you're watching something, then it makes you hungry, then again, that's a brain response.
Yeah.
And so don't watch it. Or if your family is cooking and you're trying to fast and the smell is making you hungry, go for a walk.
Yeah. That's one of our biggest things. Like if we're fasting during dinner time and it's a real struggle, we'll just go for a walk instead, just for a complete distraction. The one good thing about fasting is that if you're not buying food, preparing food, eating food, you have a lot more time on your hands. So plan something. If you know you're going to be fasting, plan an activity that maybe you don't have time for before, like maybe calling someone to catch up with them every day during the times that you would normally eat, or doing a hobby, or listening to a book, reading something,
Epsom salt bath.
like Epsom salt bath. Like maybe you're gonna plan some personal care things, of just like maybe you're gonna get a massage, maybe you're gonna. So the thing is, we're saying like plan ahead for the times that you're not gonna be eating during those meal times that you normally would, instead of it feeling empty and just thinking about food and missing the meal. Plan something to do during that time and stay busy. Whether it's gardening, going for a walk, hike, bicycling, like whatever kind of thing it is. Yeah. So basically, stay busy, have a plan, pray, and keep in mind your goals. A lot of times people have a goal in mind for their fasting, whether God's called them to fast or it's physical, mental, whatever the goal is. Keeping that in mind and reminding yourself of that goal is always really helpful to stick with the fasting. The other thing is remembering that your favorite thing about fasting.
But you're in control?
No.
Oh, fat is fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, fat, that has a purpose. Fat is fuel. That's what fat is. It's energy, stored energy on your body. Yeah. And so once you get to a longer fast, you're going to tap in, you're going to deplete all of your body's glucose reserves, and your body's going to start turning that fat into energy. Yeah. And that energy
which is the purpose of it.
That's the purpose, yeah. So, and when your body's looking for energy on your body, it's going to go to the fat. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing. And so when you get that hunger feeling, the other strategy is you can, like I said, you can drown it, drink a lot of fluid, and see if it goes away in 45 minutes. Maybe a little longer. Women sometimes take a little longer on their cycle for it to go away, but you're not going to die in 45 minutes. So if it goes away in an hour, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, fine. If it doesn't, you're in control. And you can say, you know what, I'm going to break my fast and break it with some real food.
Yeah. That's the other thing, is that we always push, is that you're always in control of your fast. Even if you've planned a certain amount of time, if you're not doing well, you're struggling, or there's a family event that pops up or something like that, like it's okay to break your fast. You can start again after that meal. You don't have to eat for a full day and then fast again. You can be fasting, enjoy one meal, and go back to fasting when you feel better, physically better, like especially if you get sick. Yep. So that's the other key, is just listening to your body and remembering that you're in control. There doesn't have to be any fear involved with fasting.
And the other thing was like, if you want to keep fasting during an event, and have a strategy ahead of time. I one of the easiest things, I don't always tell people I'm fasting, because when they don't understand.
That's another big thing.
But one of the things fasting does is it heals your body. So he's like, you know what? If you go to an event and you don't want to eat, then you can say, actually, I'm taking a break today for my stomach. My stomach needs a break today. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, I've had stomach issues. It's not like an issue. It's just like I'm feeling my stomach needs a break today. I need to need to not eat.
Yeah.
And
Or just saying you don't feel like eating or you're not hungry right now. People respect that
yeah,
usually. But if you tell them you're fasting and you haven't eaten in so many days, they'll be like, we need to feed you. And then everyone falls off the deep end. So
yeah.
maybe don't use the word fasting.
We actually had a potluck and we had to bring food too, and so we brought the food because we were actually sponsoring it, but we knew we were fasting and we were
Yeah.
in a longer fast,
And normally
we were in the
would-
middle of a long fast, so we
Yeah.
didn't want to break it.
Yeah.
And then like at the beginning of the thing, nobody showed up two people brought all this food and nobody was there. It was just us, like, well, we're not even eating, And so then people started showing up and it's like, hey, yeah, eat as much as you want. And so helped the workers and the people that were working there too get to eat our food, and it was fine. And we gave extra food to a family with their kids, and just
Yeah. It worked out the way God intended because He called us to the fast. We weren't supposed to eat when normally we would break a fast for something like that, to eat with people and stuff,
Yeah.
a celebration and everything. But He called us to a specific fast during that specific time, and then He sent the people to eat the food. So
there you
we
go.
can trust Him with it. It was very good. So yeah, it's okay not to tell people that you're fasting.
Yep. The other part about it is mental. There's different emotions that you're going to experience, especially in longer fasts. We talked about you're going to feel hangry. I don't feel hangry anymore. That was something I did at the very beginning. But that you basically have to kill. That would kill off very quickly once you start fasting.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other emotions you're going to feel, and you're going to feel things a little deeper than you would before. And you're going to, especially if you're pouring into the Bible, you're going to find revelations in there that you're like, wow, how come I never saw this? And sometimes I find some of the deepest meanings I come across of are verses I've read hundreds of times, and it's when I'm fasting that actually it gets like, this is what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God is taking up more space in your mind, body, and spirit than you were allowing before when you were not fasting, and so it's easier to connect with Him and hear from Him, and He highlights certain things. There's more revelation usually when you're fasting.
Yeah, and the more you get exposed to longer fasts, the more you open yourself up to basically not food but more to God, then you feel emotions very deeply. And
yeah, fasting will just make you feel very raw.
Yeah, like a peeled potato sometimes.
Yes, it can be very emotional at times.
Yep.
Yeah.
And things will just they'll hit you, and they'll hit you hard, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's good to experience those things because you're getting closer to God's heart and the emotions that He feels especially the emotions He feels when He feels sad about how we act and how we don't act right around each other, and But then there's immense joy, and so
yeah,
it's
there is that.
It's deep. It's a deep feeling that you just, as Davey said, there's just emotions you're going to feel that you're never going to feel other than when you're fasting out, for a longer fast. And I agree with him.
Yeah.
After I'm doing it, so.
Yep, agreed. So, if you're looking for a deeper connection with God, then I highly recommend fasting.
Yeah, well, he recommends fasting too.
Okay, we all recommend fasting. That's why we're here.
Yeah, we agree with God on that one. Beatitudes, because it says you're supposed to fast. It's when you fast, when you fast, when you fast, and he says all these other things that you're supposed to do in the Beatitudes, and everybody's like, and he says when you pray, and then he says when you fast, and everybody's like, and why did everybody read that? And they're like, well, everything else is absolutely mandatory minute, but fasting that's optional. It's like not optional. It's not optional. When Jesus tells you to do something, when is it optional? The one time he said it was optional is that you don't have to fast when he was physically on the planet with his disciples. Well, he hasn't returned yet, so guess what? When you fast.
Well said.
And by the way, they fasted before they chose Paul as the replacement apostle, so just gonna throw that out there. So they did it.
We're going to take a quick moment and share with you how we got started and some free resources that are available to you.
We want to tell you how we became fasting experts. We tried to lose weight all the ways it told you to for over 10 years and just stayed heavy and didn't get healthier and got frustrated and got sick of it. And then she told me about fasting and I said, no way. And then we did it and it was so successful that now we teach people how to do it.
Yeah.
We learned a lot of things, learned a lot of research, and I have to be proven that it's right, and I did prove it was right, and so now I can help you, Brianne can help you, and we can help you be successful. We have a website called kingdomfasting.com. That's where you can link to our podcast. You can get our free 5-day challenge to fast for your first time. You can get calendars, and you get a jumpstart guide. And if you still have more questions, you can reach out to us and we will meet with you. And you can schedule an in-person meeting or a video chat at the bottom of our page, Schedule Me. So, one of the other issues is sometimes you have people that don't know how to cook or can't cook for themselves, and you have to prepare meals for them because they're
Right.
not fasting.
Right, while you're fasting.
While you're fasting.
Yeah.
And that is it. You're going to smell the food, you're going to see the food, you're going to prepare the food, and it's
Mhm.
right in front of you. And sometimes that is a real struggle for a lot of people, especially when we a lot of times will taste food while we're making it. Does it taste right? Well, I would recommend probably not doing that unless they maybe spit it out. One thing is you can ask God for help with that. Two, one of the easier ways to do it is meal prep.
Yeah, meal prepping ahead of time is huge. So, for my kids, when they were home and I was fasting, I would make them breakfast and then I would immediately make something like in the crock pot or something for dinner because when I wake up in the morning, I'm not hungry at all and it doesn't bother me to make food for other people and not have to eat it. So I would try and make everything in the morning when I wasn't hungry and then have it in the fridge for them, like when they got home from school, or make a big batch of something that would last through the weekend. Or if I knew they were going to be somewhere else, I would just kind of prep some of those kind of like breakfast type stuff, for the weekend and different things like that. But the other thing is just to have simple things in the fridge that they can make for themselves. And our kids were old enough at the time to understand that we were fasting for particular reasons or a particular time or whatever. And so they were very supportive of that. And they were like, okay, I'll, make myself lunch or, I can reheat this and feed myself dinner. And then we would plan other activities. We wouldn't sit down at the table with them and eat. We would usually go for a walk. But then after they ate, we would plan family activities and like have a game night or do something else together. So it worked out well for us in that season. And I know someone else who has very little children, so she has to cook for them all 3 meals during the day. But she's trying to do 24-hour fast, so she's not usually hungry in the morning, so she'll cook food for them. Then she'll meal prep everything for the rest of the day. She'll eat lunch with them because that's her hungry time, and then she fasts through dinner so she does 24s like lunch every day because that's what works for her and her kids. Because at dinner time, her husband's home, he can feed the kids with the food that she's already prepared in the morning when she wasn't hungry, and she can work on something else and have a little break time from the kids. So there's a lot of different options out there when you have to cook for someone else and you can make it work. But the biggest thing is just to pray and ask God to help you through that because He knows if He's called you to a fast, He knows that you still have to cook for people and He will help you through that.
Yeah. I want to say, with the kids, when you tell your family's in your house, they're going to know that you're fasting.
Right.
And sometimes the kids would come home and they'd bring home something. It's like, hey, you want to have some of this? And I said, at first it was like, no, we're fasting. Okay, we usually told them ahead of time, sometimes they didn't know, and they are you fasting? And if the answer is yes, oh, okay, well then we'll just say it for later. And they got really fine with that. You have to tell people that you need to be supportive of me fasting, because there are people that like to sabotage their spouse. Or they say, "Aren't you hungry? Aren't you hungry? Wouldn't you like this? Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like a Twix bar? Wouldn't you like this? Wouldn't you?" It's like, no, you need to be supportive of me. Don't keep bringing up food to me. Just be supportive of it. And so that doesn't help. Help me be successful at this. And so what I need you to do, and sometimes you have to address that person directly and say, "Don't try to sabotage my fast. Don't try to sabotage these things." And I think there's a lot of reasons why people do that. And I think one of the reasons is I think that the individual is scared that their spouse is going to change physically too much, or they think they're worried about being healthy because you have to prove this healthy, show them this healthy, and then the other thing is that sometimes they like, well, I'm used to you being this size, and it's usually personal. They have a personal problem, but like if your body changes too much, then maybe you won't be attracted to me anymore, and so because you can now get somebody else. Like you're stuck with me because you're this heavy, but if you get skinny, then you won't be this heavy anymore, and then I'll be left alone. And so there's a lot of emotional things, but I've seen it several times with spouses who try to sabotage their spouse. It's because they have personally have a problem, and they're personally afraid that their spouse will basically leave them. I know that's terrible, but some people it's their deep emotional pain
Yes.
that is they're
Causing that.
projecting
Yeah.
and sabotaging you because of the hurt that they're carrying inside. So you just say, look, you need to reassure them, and they need to reassure you. It's like, look, I want to be with you. I'm happy with you. I just need to do this for myself. I need to be healthier. I'd love for you to do it with me. But if you don't want to do it with me, I still love you. I still want to be with you. But you have to be supportive of this, and you have to help me.
Yeah.
And I think if you start it that way, if you're finding that somebody's sabotaging you, then you might have to figure out why are they attacking this so hard.
Right. And just getting to the root of the emotional pain and taking that to
Yeah.
Jesus and spending time praying as a couple and things like that will really, really help pave the
Yeah.
way for both of you being on the same page with fasting.
Yeah.
So sometimes there is that struggle.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. And if this episode was helpful to you, we would love it if you shared it with a friend or family member.
Happy fasting.